Welcome again to University English 2, The Skills. Today it's Unit 8, Small Talk, or Establishing, Building and Maintaining Relationships. We'll begin with our usual introduction, following with how you can be approachable, and then expressing interest by using interjections and formulaic expressions. Also, how you can express disinterest. And then on to making the approach. How we can conduct a bit of chatter, and then general pleasantries, use of names, business cards and gestures, and then into the realm of small talk itself. Looking at topics we can use to talk to people, such as surroundings, current events, and then getting a little bit more personal. We'll also be looking at how you can make a toast, and then we'll be examining the close or the end of your little conversation, followed by a summary. Now, in The Electrical Worker in 1914, we have a quotation which has since become quite famous. It's not what you know that counts so much as who you know. And this unit is all about getting to know the people you need to know for your success. Now, small talk is also called phatic communication. And this was a term coined by Malinowski back in 1923. This is polite conversation about things which are not very important in that particular moment. Now, small talk may simply be what we call pleasantries, also known as chatter. Words such as hello and goodbye, with maybe little or nothing said in between, or small talk may be much more substantial in nature. Now, small talk does have a social function. It acts as a social lubricant. Think of the oil in the machine, allowing the machine to operate. And as such, it allows us as the cogs in this machine to interact with other cogs, those being other people within society. And this idea was coined by Holmes in 2000. Now, small talk allows people who are meeting for the first time to become friendlier and also to define their potential relationships in terms of relative social status, reputation, and expertise. Now, for ongoing relationships, small talk helps us to maintain and to build rapport or connection with other people. And this is from some research by Lever in 1975. Now, there are differences between the ways men and women engage in small talk, with men being much more competitive and women being much more collaborative, according to Tannen in 1992. There's also a great deal of cultural variation in the methods and the use of small talk around the world. Now, despite these differences and these variations, if you cannot effectively engage in small talk, then getting to know people, which, as we've seen from the quotation, is so important for your success in both your professional and your personal life, and then building upon these relationships is going to be an astronomically difficult, a monumental task. Let's start somewhere simple. Being approachable. How can you make it so other people desire to talk to you? Now, you need to focus in this case on certain aspects of yourself. For example, your hygiene, You need to wash yourself, brush your teeth regularly, maintain your nails, and keep your hair well groomed. For women, apply appropriate makeup for the situation. For your dress, you want to wear clothing which expresses your personality, of course, but also clothing which is appropriate or suitable for the situation that you will find yourself in. Also, pay attention to your posture. You want to stand or sit straight. Slouching implies either laziness or low self-esteem, a low opinion of yourself. For position, you want to stand or sit facing the people that you are interested in, the people you want to talk to, the people you want to approach you. For your hands, don't put them in your pockets. This implies disinterest, or that I'm not that interested. Don't cross them, which implies that you are being defensive. Instead, use your hands for gestures to emphasize points when you are talking. Remember the importance of body language. Now, phones tend to be a bit of a problem these days. If you want people to approach you, to talk to you in the real world, put your phones away. Using your cell phone or using your cell phone to listen to music immediately implies that you're not interested actually in being approached. If you've got headphones in, people aren't going to try to talk to you. For your expressions, meet people's gaze, smile at them if you're interested in them approaching you and trying to talk to you. And for movement, know that you can move around in order to give people an opportunity to approach you. So if you're very far away from a person that you want to talk to, it's going to be very difficult for them to have an opportunity to talk to you. So perhaps simply moving a little bit closer might help. Now, a person being approached by someone else for the first time really has a choice of whether they wish to get to know that person or not. If you wish to get to know the person, then when they approach you and try to talk to you, you should actively listen to what you're saying, and you should actively join in the conversation by speaking to them as well. Now, active speaking in practical terms means responding to the questions asked in addition to asking questions yourself in order to help the conversation progress. If one person is doing all of the talking, it's not really a conversation. It's what we call a monologue. Mono, remember, meaning one. It's one person who's doing all the talking. It's not really going to end in a conversation between you. Active listening means engaging the person with appropriate body language, showing that you're interested, such as positioning your body towards that person, getting eye contact with that person, and encouraging them to continue with facial expressions. Now, another way to show that you're listening is to use what we call interjections. And these are short expressions or even simply just sounds that show our feelings. Now, some interjections are universal, meaning those kind of sounds that we make really are understood by everybody around the world, but others are very cultural or linguistically based. So, for example, if you want to show your relief in something, then you might say, phew. For victory or success, hooray. For excitement, woohoo. Amazement, wow. Surprise, oh. Mockery, ha ha. Say that something is tasteful, yum. It's funny, ha ha. Thoughtful, Surprise, yikes. I'm listening, uh-huh. To show doubt or just to be used as a filler of space, To say that's weird, huh? Disgust. Boredom. Zzz. Disappointment. Or space filler. Mistake. Oops. To show irritation. Arg. And to show a mistake. Doh. And there are many others. But use your interjections well to show that you are actually engaging the person while they are speaking. Now, also, you can use formulaic expressions. And these are fixed expressions which have a particular use and a particular meaning. And they can be used to show that you agree with a good thing that the person has said, which we'll call positive agreement, or that you agree with a bad thing that they have said, which we'll call negative agreement. Or they can simply be used to indicate that you feel the same way, regardless of if it's good or bad, or maybe neither. And this is known as empathy, that you understand. So let's look at some examples. So to agree with something that, when the other person has said it and it sounds good, you might say, cool, that's great, or simply great, or wonderful, or funny, or that's funny, awesome, fantastic, amazing. For negative agreement, they say something bad and you want to agree with them that that is bad. That's terrible, or just terrible. Ridiculous. I can't believe it. Oh dear, no way. That sucks. And to show that you understand, that you have empathy, you might say, really? I'm hearing you. Yeah, I understand. Makes sense. I know how you feel. Exactly. Now use interjections and formulaic expressions while the other person is speaking. Slot them into the conversation which is currently being led by the other speaker, usually while they are pausing, to show that you are listening, to actively listen. Now, a situation may arise where you want to actually show that you are not that interested in speaking to a person. If they approach you, for example, and you don't really want to talk to that person. So how would you express disinterest, that you're not interested? Well, rejecting an approach is simply the reverse of participation, but you should do it politely because you never know what might happen if you make somebody angry or feel very, very bad. So here are some ways that you can do that quite simply. Use your body language. Don't make eye contact with them when they're trying to talk to you. Maybe angle your body away from them. Use blank facial expressions. Also, when they are, remember that a conversation is a two-way thing. So when they are asking questions, you don't want to be rude and just ignore them, but you can give them a one-word response and add nothing further. And then not contribute by asking questions of your own, which is what you would do if you were trying to continue the conversation with that person. You can also engage with somebody else. Start a conversation with a friend of yours who's near you, perhaps. That's a good way of indicating that you're not available to talk. And then if all of these methods fail and the person simply doesn't get the message, walk. And that means you can be polite again and just say, excuse me, I have to go to the bathroom, or any other place that you desire, but you can simply remove yourself from that situation. Now, generally speaking, who is going to make the approach? Well, in most situations, Mintzberg found in 1973 that the approach itself is expected from those who have a more senior social standing. Where social standing is similar, the social expectations are usually for men to initiate approaches with women of a similar social standing. And this is from some research by Bowles et al. And others in 2007. Now, note the importance of this research here, because the person making the approach is by implication a senior. So if you are not a senior, but you are making approaches, it would be an indication that you have the potential to be a senior. Therefore, it is an indication of leadership being also management in the workplace potential. So it's a good thing to be able to make approaches yourself with people. Now, in addition to all of the criteria for being approachable, for people perhaps wanting to talk to you, in order to approach someone else, you have to be able to overcome your nerves in order to introduce yourself. To help calm your nerves, there are a few things which can be done. One of them is to practice. To practice saying things that you might when you meet new people. So practice always makes perfect, and practice is a good thing here. Also visualize. Try not to think of negative or bad outcomes that could result. Try and think of good outcomes instead. And imagine. Pretend that you know the person already. Pretend that they're your friend and talk to them as if you would a friend. And be happy. Remember, the worst that can happen is you might not get along very well with that person. And then don't worry if the meeting doesn't go well. Just forget about it and move on. Now, it's common, even when we don't know someone well, to offer a few words of greeting. Now, this may be in passing, as you're just passing them as you walk down the hall, for example, or it could be as a welcome when you meet them. So similar greetings will be used, by the way, when you wish to engage in a longer conversation of some kind. And these greetings are typically responded to with some kind of similar reply. Let's take a look then. In relation to formality, informal would be friends or family, really. All means suitable for everybody, and formal is, in this case, very polite. So here we have at the beginning a very formal expression originating in the United Kingdom, and this one is to be used only with new people you're meeting for the first time. And this would be, how do you do? The response would likely be, nice to meet you, because you're meeting someone for the first time. Now, standard greetings, really, which would be used at appropriate times of day, are greetings like good morning, and the good can be omitted. So you can just say morning, or if it's a little later in the day, afternoon, or evening, or good evening. Also, a kind of standard greeting would be hello. Now, hello is rarely used informally. It can be, but hello is a little bit more formal than hi, or hiya, or hey, or heya. And these are common informal greetings that we will use. Hello is a little bit more formal. Now, there is a lot of slang as well. So in the United Kingdom and Australia, people will often use the word mate, meaning here friend. All right, mate, for example. And a slang greeting in Australia in particular is g'day. G'day, mate. In the United States, and these originated in the United States, but as with many things these days, culture is becoming global. So words like yo, sup, what's up, these kind of greetings can be used, but again, generally use them with your friends. And there are specific regional greetings, such as howdy, which is used in southern parts of the United States. Now, after your initial greeting, which is simply chatter, so you might just say hello or hi to people, good morning, as just a greeting, and then continue on your way. But if you're going to meet and try to communicate more with people, then there will be a more concrete verbal exchange, another exchange of pleasantries after that. So let's take a look at some examples. Now, slightly bordering on the more formal, but can also be used semi-formally as well. And these are to be used for first meetings only. So only the first time you meet somebody. So person A might say, I'm pleased to meet you. And person B would likely reply, pleased to meet you too. Now, I'm is optional. Often we omit it or delete it in these cases, simply because we know the context already. Now, note that it is quite common to mirror what people say to us. So, for example, if you meet somebody and they say good morning, then it's been noted that actually most of the time people will reply in the same way. So instead of using an alternative, they would likely say good morning in response. So another alternative here for being quite polite would be, it's a pleasure to meet you. Pleasure to meet you too. And then slightly less formal, but not that much less formal. Again, only for first meetings, though. A might say, nice to meet you, and B would say, nice to meet you too. Good to meet you. It's good to meet you too. Also, you could use for all, but these are not for first meetings. This would be for subsequent meetings. You already know the person. Then you can greet them, and this would be for any formality, simply by saying, how are you? And then the other person might reply, I'm good, and you? Or there are many expressions that you could use in this case. Here's another example. How have you been? And the person might reply, I've been great. You? Now, there are some other examples here. So this is now semi-formal bordering to the informal. So maybe with co-workers or with friends or family for sure. And once again, this is not for first meetings. This is for when you already know somebody and you are continuing your greeting with them. So person A might say, how's everything? And B would reply, it's okay. How about you? Another alternative is, how are things? Meaning things in your life. And B might reply, they are fine. The things in my life are fine. What about you? Another example, how are you doing? I'm great. And you? Or you might ask, how's your day? Or how's your day going? It's okay. What about yours? And finally here, just simply, how's it going? It being your life, perhaps. So it's going well, might be a response here. Now, to be used with friends or family only, really, informally, not really with co-workers or professional situations. And again, not in first meetings. You might just say, what's up? And the person might respond. And this would be likely a friend. Not much. I went to see a movie, or they might start talking about their business. You might just say, what's new? Oh, I've been busy. And again, go on talking about your business or what's been happening. I've been writing a book. Might be a response depending on telling them what the news is. And how's life treating you? It's good. I met someone. And then again, easy when you know someone, especially if they're a friend or a family member, to start talking about your life, as you can see here with these examples. Now, these final ones here can be used with all levels of formality, but if some time has passed since the last time you saw that person, in which case you might say, it's been a while, and the other person might respond, yes, it's been ages. Or another way of doing this is to say, long time no see. And the response might be, yes, it's been a while. Now, if it's a first meeting, an introduction of names and, depending on the occasion, possibly occupations or workplaces as well might take place. Now, typically outside of very formal first meetings, titles and family names are not used, but this may differ culturally. So between different cultures, this might be different. Note that business cards may also be exchanged at professional first meetings, and the shaking of hands is common at professional first meetings as well. Now, note that the shaking of hands does not occur in less formal first meetings. So if you're just meeting somebody socially, for example, a friend is introducing you to another friend, then you would not be shaking hands. So here, for example, A says, "Hello, I'm Brian Adams." And B says, "It's nice to meet you. I'm Sally Cole." So they're exchanging first names and family names in this occasion. It's likely to be actually a more formal first meeting. Now, if you already know the person, greetings will often be used alongside that person's name. So, for example, if you meet a co-worker and his name is Jim, then A might say, "Morning, Jim. How are you today?" And if the person asking is called Sally, then Jim would respond by saying, "Hey, Sally, I'm fine. How about you?" Now, as we've seen, when talking with friends or family, it's quite easy to continue a conversation after your initial greeting because you can just simply start talking about developments in your life, in your studies, or at your workplace. Now, this actually represents a step up from what is referred to as chatter, chatter being just initial greetings with people. Typically, conversations will then evolve about things which are of mutual interest or mutual importance to the people. And this is quite easy to do because you already know your friends and family, so you're quite comfortable and relaxed around them. And you already have a lot of things to talk about. You have a lot of things in common. That's why you are friends. And with family, you'll have things in common, whether you like it or not. Now, of course, in first meetings, you'll likely not so readily start talking about aspects of your intimate life because you don't know the person. Also, what experiences and interests that you have in common that you both do or both have an interest in, which you can easily talk about, are not yet known because you don't know the person. So you don't know what you have in common with that person yet. So in order to move past chatter with people that you don't know well yet, this is where we start entering the realm of small talk. To get to know new acquaintances better, there are a variety of safe topics, and the big word here is safe topics which can be used to develop a conversation. Now, these topics, there are many of them, but you can essentially categorize them into three main categories, which are quite easy to remember. Those being your surroundings and current events, and then personal matters. Remember always that these are just conversation starters, those being means of finding interests or experiences which you share with the other person, which you have in common with the other person. Once you've found things which you have in common, then you can start talking about those things because it's much, much easier to talk about things that you have an interest or you have experiences with. Then you develop the conversation more in depth, talking about what you have in common. Let's have a look then at these different conversation starters, starting with surroundings. Now, this is one of the simplest and easiest and most used ways to find things to talk about with people that you don't know that well. Just look around you at your surroundings and you think about what you are seeing or what you are experiencing in that moment, in that particular time, and start to talk about those things. For example, if there are other people around you, let's imagine you're at a party, you might know a person called John, so you can talk to an unknown person and say, "So, how do you know John?" Or even if it's a place where you don't even know the people, you can start to talk to somebody by saying, "Wow, it's crowded in here." If there's food and drink available, you can talk about the food and drink. What do you think of the punch? Or you should try this sushi, it's great. If there's music playing, or perhaps a comedian, if you're in a comedy club, how do you like the music? Or the jokes tonight aren't my cup of tea. My cup of tea is an English expression meaning it's not my taste, not my style. Now, you might also just talk about the location itself. For example, if you're in a bar, you might ask somebody, are you a regular here? Meaning, do you come here often? Or if you're at a park, you might say, oh, wow, these flowers are beautiful. And a very, very common one is to talk about the climate, the weather. The weather is terrible today. Or even if you're inside and not experiencing outside weather, you can talk about the climate. For example, the air conditioning might be on too strongly. Isn't it cold in here? And then you might also talk about the person's attire, their clothing, which is part of your surroundings. That's an interesting suit. Or where did you get that amazing dress? Now, another light topic would be to talk about things which are common knowledge at that moment in time. Now, in order to be able to talk about current events, really, you want to stay up to date with what's happening in the world. Otherwise, you will have nothing to talk about in relation to current events. Now, note that at work, current events also includes developments in your workplace. So work-related news or professional news if you are serving in a particular profession. These can also all serve as current events. Now, you do want to try to avoid conversations on politics and religion with people that you are meeting for the first time, or even for the first few times until you get to know them quite well. Because these topics, these kinds of topics, can create confrontation and conflict quite easily. So try to avoid these kinds of topics. But there are many subcategories here for current events. For example, headline news. So you might ask if there was a tsunami, for example, you might ask, did you hear about the tsunami? Now, here's one you probably shouldn't talk about. Are you liking the new president? Because maybe they do, maybe they don't, maybe you do, maybe you don't. And it could immediately be a disagreement that you have. Economic news is also a good one. How's business treating you? If they are running a business, for example. Or that interest rate hike is going to hurt. Sports news. Are you a football fan? Especially if you're perhaps watching sports or something like that, but can be used anytime. Are you watching the Olympics these days? Entertainment news. Did you hear about the new Marvel movie? I'll bet you're a BTS fan. Work news as well. So remember, work news can form part of the current events in your particular workplace. So have you read the latest BMJ article? That's the British Medical Journal article, if you're a doctor or a nurse, for example. Or did you see the new regulations? Perhaps the university has new regulations, for example. Now, if you want to start getting to know someone a little better, then topics will need to focus on personal aspects of life at some point in the conversation. Be careful about discussing relationships. It may be inappropriate, particularly in a professional context, and especially at a first meeting. You don't want to be asking these kinds of questions. If it's not a professional context, these may be valid questions. For example, if you meet someone in a bar, then you might ask whether they have a boyfriend or a girlfriend. But at work, this should not really form the basis of how you are starting to develop your relationship. So you might ask questions about their career, for example. What do you do? What is your job? What is your area of expertise? What kind of field do you specialize in? So once again, do you have a boyfriend is probably a no, unless it's a personal meeting. And then, are you an only child, is maybe acceptable. Background questions, general background questions. Where do you study if you're a student? Or why did you move here as well? So just talking about a person's general background. And then hobbies. Do you have any hobbies? What do you do in your free time? Again, always remembering that you're trying to find something in common. Maybe they studied in the same place as you. Maybe they have the same hobby. Maybe they like doing the same things in their free time. And then finally, experiences. If you're at an event, you might ask, do you go to a lot of these things? Or simply, where did you go on holiday? If they mention a holiday last summer. So always, though, looking for something in common that you can then grab hold of in order to continue the conversation using that. Now, when someone makes a toast, this is different from the bread and butter kind of toast. When someone makes a toast, they stand up and they say a few words of praise. That means kindness to people around them, perhaps with the intention of motivating them or inspiring them or simply just to improve relationships. And making toasts is a quite common thing, which occurs often at professional lunches or professional dinner meetings, which are actually very often themselves places where you will be engaging in a lot of small talk. But they can also occur at gatherings of friends and family as well. Now, a toast is traditionally made by simply saying a few words, a few kind words, while standing up if you were seated before, and holding a drinking glass filled with a drink of some kind, a beverage of some kind. Often it's an alcoholic beverage, followed by these few words, and then cheers at the end, to which other people will then respond, cheers, and touch glasses with each other before taking a sip. Now, the words said during the toast can be short and simple, or it can be a whole speech, really long and detailed. So somebody might just stand up and say simply, here's to new friends, cheers, and everybody else would just say cheers back, and you touch glasses and have a drink. However, often we are asked to do these things, like somebody would say to you, can you just stand up and say a few kind words to these people that we've just met? And you can't think of something nice to say. In these cases, it might be a good idea to research a good toast and to memorize it. And then you can use this when you're perhaps a little bit tipsy and can't think of something spectacular to say. So here's one that I have regularly used in the past. There are good ships and there are wood ships, the ships that sail the sea. But the best ships are friendships, and may they always be. Cheers. And then everybody says cheers and everyone's happy. Now, before the final farewell, there's often a lead up indicating that the person intends to depart. Now, formally to semi-formally are most of these first three here, but let's look at the first one. So often used in a professional context, you might say something like, have a nice day or have a good weekend. Also in a professional context, when you know that you're going to meet them the next time again, you might say, I look forward to it being the next meeting, or until next time. So again, quite professionally, used when a first meeting has taken place. You might say, it was nice to meet you. It was nice to meet you. Past tense. It's been a pleasure. It has been a pleasure. Perfect aspect. So you can use those expressions at the end of a first meeting to show that you've enjoyed this meeting with them. Now, to be used with people that you frequently meet, and this would be semi-formal really to informal, so you can use it with friends or family or co-workers quite easily. You might just say see you, or later, or talk later. Now, also can be used for all people, but mostly used in a professional context. You might say, take care. Used when leaving, but you don't want to be rude. So you're kind of pushing that you want to go. You might say, I've got to get going. And the last three here are informal. So you should generally use these only with friends or family. So the first is a casual way to say, have a nice day. You can just say, take it easy. A casual way of saying, I'm leaving, and this is of origin in the US, would be, I'm out. And another casual way of saying, we're leaving, originating from the United Kingdom, we're off. So I'm leaving from the US. I've got to jet. Jet, I think comes from literally a jet which flies in the sky, and somebody thought it would sound cool. Another one of US origin, I've got to hit the road, as in get in my car and drive away. And then we're leaving of UK origin, we need to scoot. And the last one here is often used amongst children, though some adults still use it. See you later, alligator. Now, finally, there will be a closing expression. Formally, let's have a look at an old-fashioned goodbye from the United Kingdom, cheerio. And then another formal expression used in a professional context would be goodbye. Now, be careful of goodbye, because in other contexts outside of the professional context, it might be interpreted as meaning I don't intend to meet you again. For example, if you break up with a boyfriend or girlfriend, you might say to them at the end of the breakup, goodbye, meaning I'm not going to see you ever again. Now, it can be used with everybody, but only in the evening when you're going home, would be good night or night. Now, note that morning, good afternoon, or good evening or evening actually mean hello, whereas good night actually means goodbye, or it means bye. So understand the difference here. Now, the real standard that most people use in all circumstances would simply be bye, or perhaps bye-bye. Informally, amongst friends or family, a now rather old-fashioned goodbye from the United States would be peace or peace out. I believe it originated in the 1960s during the hippie movement, but it's still around. Remember that mate is often attached to things meaning friend, and in the UK and Australia, we'll attach this expression to our goodbyes as well quite frequently. So we might say, see you, mate, or bye, mate. Now, both your pre-closing and closing expression might be done alone, or they might be done in combination in order to compose your overall farewell. So in formal situations, the closes can be very polite. So for example, person A might say, I've got to get going. And B would say, me too. It's been a pleasure. Good night. And A would then say, bye. Now, amongst friends or family, it might be a little bit more relaxed and informal. So amongst friends, for example, A might say, I need to scoot. And B would say, okay, take it easy then. A says, later, mate. Bye. Let's summarize. Remember that humans are social creatures. Chatter, small talk, and conversation all help us to establish, build, and maintain our relationships with each other. Without getting to know other people, you will not be able to achieve either your personal or your professional goals. In order to establish new relationships, you must make others want to talk to you first by being approachable. So take a look at yourself in the mirror and think about how you can be more approachable. And you must be able to encourage others to approach you. And you have to have the courage necessary in order to approach other people. Now, when you're meeting new people, after some initial pleasantries, initial nice words, make sure you're encouraging continued conversation by actively speaking. That means do join in the conversation, answer their questions with detail, ask questions of your own, actively listen by using interjections and formulaic expressions. Then you want to try to find things in common, things in which you both have a mutual interest in talking about. To get the conversation started, and just to get the conversation started, try to talk about perhaps your surroundings, what is around you now, or current events, what's in the news, and then move on to probe with more personal questions. What hobbies do you have? What do you do exactly? And these kinds of things. Close conversations in an appropriate way and make an effort to stay in touch with these people. Remember, developing your relationships is particularly important. Meet them again if you like them, of course. And thus ends Small Talk. Thanks once more for your attention, and I'll see you next time.